Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to business continuity, resilience, COVID, risk, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. As you can tell by the background, it's This Week in Business Continuity with James Green. So welcome back, James.
Thank you, Alex. We made it to the end of a year.
Another
year.
We did. And we had lots of interesting things happen throughout the year, and we've touched on quite a few some things I wish we didn't have to touch on. And But hey, we touched on a lot of stuff and even did a couple of live broadcasts this year. It's been really interesting.
It's been an incredible year.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to have, and I hope everyone's listening, we're going to have a few announcements coming up in the next month.
Yes, definitely next month.
And not one announcement, a few announcements.
We have a lot. My calendar's already getting full for next year. It's very exciting.
Yeah, mine is starting to as well, and you're on half of it. So
that's what I like to hear. You went from no James Green in person with you to you're going to be like, hey, I need some time away from you.
Yeah, go away. Well, let's get started because we got a few things to chat about today. As always, I'm sure everyone that's watched previous episodes should know James always sends a bunch of links for me to look at, and then we talk about them here. Today is no different. The first one I thought was rather interesting, the link you sent to me about cyber security or cyber resilience and business continuity. I thought this was rather interesting.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite links of the year, Alex. So Rubrik Zero Labs recently released a report, and it was called The State of Data Security, the Human Impact of Cybercrime. It was a survey of 1,600 cybersecurity leaders, all directors and above throughout the world. Now, all of our audience is probably like, this is called This Week in Business Continuity. Who cares about data security and cybersecurity? There were two shocking stats that jumped out to me. I sent them to you. I dug into the report. I'm like, these have to be typos. But there were two shocking stats that we want to share with the audience. The first, 92% of respondents are concerned they will be unable to maintain business continuity if they experience a cyber attack. And even crazier, only 5% of organizations were able to return to business continuity of normal operations within 1 hour of discovering any type of cyber attack. So it didn't just have to be ransomware. It could have been anything. Yeah. So we've talked this year, and I talk a lot, and I talk again and again and again, that you have to align your BC program with management's needs and expectations in order to be successful. I don't know very many people who are aligning their BC program with cyber at their organization. So I'll ask you, Alex, are we dropping the ball here?
Drop the ball. It didn't even get thrown. Like we're not even in the same ballpark. If only 5% and 92% don't think they will get business continuity up and running in an hour or a couple of hours, that's huge. That is a huge gap. And I think part of it is that a lot of what we promote with cyber, and I don't mean business continuity promoting, I mean promotion of cyber in general, is a lot of IT. IT will do this. And I think some leaders and people in general have it in their head, IT has this.
Correct.
IT creates an incident, information security incident response plan, or use some other name, which in a way people will see as, well, then that, pushes business continuity, the crisis management team, off to the side, because now we've got information security. So everything's in place. But that plan has to link to all these other groups. And I think this assumption that IT has it has been ingrained in the way we've been creating awareness. We haven't saying that cyber is everybody involved. Everyone has a part to play in recovery, response, preparedness. It's don't click a link on an email. That's what ends up in front of business, non-IT people. So they're seeing a divide, and those people that are, identifying phishing emails and don't click links and things like that are saying, oh, well, then that must mean IT has everything else. But that's not true. And just those stats show right there that we have created the wrong awareness, or the not enough of the right awareness out there. It's everybody's role in a cyber event. It's just like a fire or a flood. Everybody is a part of those. How come when cyber comes along, they're not, all these other areas are not a part of that event? And it seems as though we've made I won't say a mistake, but we haven't really gone far enough with awareness to let people know that, hey, when there's a cyber event, business is involved. Business continuity is involved. Marketing people, salespeople, everybody is involved in your groups. It's not just suddenly the network guy or the information security guy takes over. And I think that's what's in a lot of people's heads.
Yeah, like I said, this is a shocking stat, but I also think this first one is a very exciting stat because of how high it is. The only thing I think I can get 90% of cybersecurity people to agree on is that Illuminate Advisory should buy them lunch when they're on site, right? And we always talk about, how do we get engagement? How do we keep management engagement? How do we get resources? How do we get funding ad nauseum? This is an amazing opportunity. I want every single person who's in your audience to go to your CISO, to go to your cybersecurity leaders and say, hey, do you have concerns about business continuity in the event of a cyber event? And when they say yes, you need to then go with them to senior management and say, here is a risk. Let me work with you to mitigate that.
Yeah, agreed. I'm actually doing some work right now. I am in contact with the information security manager and the crisis management team, because everybody had developed a different response plan, and we're actually now bringing them all together. So there's conversations that are going on that should have been going on for quite some time, but now they're all coming together and realizing that, hey, yeah, everyone's got to be a part of this. It can't just be them or them. It's us as a group. So yeah, I agree with that. We got to bring all these groups together and approach the leadership and just say, hey, things may not be as perfect as you might think they are.
Exactly. So yeah, the stats were surprising. If anyone wants this report, contact Alex or I. We're happy to share it. I feel like Rubrik Zero Labs should send us t-shirts for promoting this. So if you guys are watching, we will take a hat or a t-shirt as thank you. But yeah, really eye-popping stats. But I think our profession, we should take this and really use it to our advantage while also helping our organizations.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's an opportunity here. And I think that's where we should focus on, and then take it there. And we have a chance, to make business continuity and security work closer together, and, really fix in a lot of gaps that obviously are in existence right now. What I will do is in the video description below, I will put the link to this report.
Excellent.
Actually, I'll put all the links that we talk about today down there for everybody. So that was our first one. I thought, the 92 and the 5% stats were so far apart that it was just, wow. It floored me when I first read it as well, because I did the same thing you did. I went through and started reading it going, that can't be right. No way.
Yeah, exactly. This has to be a typo.
Yeah. So let's move to our second one. And this one was rather interesting. The mayor of New York has declared an emergency situation with regards to homelessness. So
The mayor of Los Angeles.
yes,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So Los Angeles in California has a new mayor, and she has, as Alex said, declared a state of emergency. Did some fact finding here, rather interesting. The Los Angeles population is 3.8 million. They estimate, it's hard to get a strong number, but they estimate that 40,000 people are homeless. And starting to look at the people who are at risk of homelessness, right? The average, Alex, you'll love this, the average rent in Los Angeles in US dollars is $2,700 a month.
Wow.
And 63% of households in Los Angeles rent. And so it got me thinking, as rent continues to rise, as home prices continue to rise, I think at some point, employee housing cost might become a business continuity issue for a lot of our organizations that are based in Los Angeles, Toronto, New York, Hong Kong. What are your thoughts? Because I don't think that's something a lot of us have ever talked about is our employee base, especially now that more and more back office, white collar workers work at home. What if they have to move or they're at risk of potential homelessness because they're spending $35,000 a year on rent?
Yeah, I had that same thought going, my God, what if people start moving and what if, to smaller places? What if they cut back on their internet services where they may have the platinum level, let's say, of
Correct.
service, but now they cut back, to a lower level so that their internet is not as strong or reliable when they're working from home anymore. If they've got that rent and they are going to the office, well, they're going to not want to go to the office anymore. That's going to make a change. People may want to find something that's closer to where they are now. So there could be some talent management and what's the word I'm thinking of? Retention issues that could come into play. If they can't afford the rent and offices, big companies don't have the money to increase wages or anything like that, then people may start to move not just out of LA, using that as the example here, but moving somewhere else altogether. And now you could be in a position where you had, James is close to our data center. He lives close there. If there's an emergency, James can get into his car and be there in 30 minutes. Well, now James has moved. Now the person that you were relying on is no longer there. So there can be an impact to that, your responses, anything along those lines. And it's going to change people's priorities.
Yeah.
If I'm focusing on paying the bills, I want to keep my husband or my wife or my partner or whatever, and my children safe and fed, then that's where I'm going to focus. And I'm going to start looking for ways to do that, which could mean that I may start doing a side job somewhere and using the same computers. If I'm using a home computer and dialing in, to the office, using the same computer now for the side work. So I could be opening up my main company to some security risks now as well, all to cover the costs that are increasing. And I thought, oh, yeah, you know what? It's not a direct business continuity, but when you start thinking about all these other ripple effects, going, yeah, business continuity and security and all that could come into play.
Yeah, I want to go back to, I love that you brought up the idea of internet at home and the quality of internet at home. I think a lot of organizations, especially the last 3 years, have been painfully aware of if their employees have internet at home. I'd love to see business continuity professionals ask the second level question, though, of what's your up-down speeds? Because it makes a big difference. If I work from home and I'm on video, as you know, you and I had some calls last week and my internet service provider was having problems, I couldn't do video. It requires a different level of internet as opposed to, can James email this spreadsheet? So I'd love to see business continuity professionals, when you do that assessment of work from home employees, ask that next level question. Hey, what's your up down speed, to get an idea of that? And I think there's also precedent, thinking about where I live in the Tampa Bay area. When I work with companies here from a hurricane perspective, we look at where employees are based on zip code, because we know, hey, if the Sunshine Skyway closes, all the people in those 3 counties, instead of a 20-minute, 30-minute drive, it now becomes a 4-hour drive. So we look at, I think we're all good as business continuity professionals looking at where our employees are from a zip code perspective for a fire, for a flood, for a hurricane. Maybe we need to start looking at, from a zip code perspective, hey, Alex is spending $50,000 a year in rent. I know we pay him 65. That's not sustainable. Like you said, you're at a risk of losing that employee from a retention standpoint, or if they're a critical employee. And now, like you said, Alex is like, oh, I can get to that data center in 12 hours. I think as rents continue to rise, and as rent becomes, more and more people are renting than ever before, they don't have the stability of a fixed mortgage. This is going to become a business continuity issue for a lot of companies.
Yeah, I think so. I did, when you first sent the topic and I read, I'm going, what? This makes no sense.
See, what is James? James has lost his mind.
Again. But when I started to read the article, that's when it started to sink in, going, yeah, the ripple effects of this. It's not from the viewpoint of someone who is currently homeless. It's from the which is a whole new subject on its own, and I'm not downplaying the seriousness of that.
No,
there is the chance that others could become homeless, that currently aren't, that are performing roles and responsibilities and have jobs that might be getting pushed in that direction, and that's going to have an impact, not just on them and their families, but the organizations that they are trying to hold on to as their employer.
Yeah, exactly. The area that I live in right now, I looked up, I've lived in this house, my family and I, for 7 years. And we're fortunate enough that we own the house. But over those 7 years, the average rent in my area has gone up, I think, 60%. That's just not sustainable for almost anyone.
Yeah, so I when I lived downtown Toronto, I paid, the last place I lived where I rented was $800 a month. And I thought that was crazy anyway, but it was a nice big place. It is now around almost 3,000 for in that same building, in the same apartment, just a different floor. And
that's crazy.
Wow. And it's no wonder people can't save to buy houses.
Correct.
So, and it's no wonder people claim bankruptcy, because it's actually easier in the end to do that, which then has other impacts on your organization, because companies don't like to hire somebody who's claimed bankruptcy, especially financial institutions.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're a financial institution, you may not be able to. You may be prohibited by your own policies or regulatory requirements, that you cannot hire employees who've had financial felonies or bankruptcies within a certain amount of period. So you're going to have very strong candidates, very good people who are going to get X'd out of job opportunities.
Yeah, and it goes back to that talent piece again. Retention and trying to acquire them. It when you really think about it, it could be a much bigger issue than what you think about. It's not the visual. When you think of homelessness, you think of unfortunately somebody on the street, but take a step back and it has much bigger issues too. And because of COVID as well, it also pushes other limits, like domestic violence, and drug and alcohol use is on the increase, and that will impact homelessness as well, and it impacts organizations, and support systems in place to help all those individuals. So it becomes a much bigger issue when you really peel it back. So let's jump to our third one, which I'm sure everybody's experiencing across the country, here in Canada and in the US, are the winter storms that are coming through.
Absolutely. So we led off with cybersecurity. We talked about the potential risk of homelessness as a business continuity issue. So we thought we'd talk about something a little more traditional in our wheelhouse. In the United States, some crazy weather is happening right now. First of all, parts of Southern California got 7 inches of rain over last weekend. And for your audience who may not be familiar with that, like 7 inches of rain, so what? That is freakishly large. I used to work with a company in San Diego, California, which is, for those of you who aren't as maybe geographically challenged as I am, just north of very southern part of California, just north of Mexico. Rain in San Diego and in that area, Alex, is so rare that this client, if it rained at all, didn't matter, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 2 millimeters, they closed the office. People just freaked out because they see rain like every, as often, like very rarely. So 7 inches of rain in Southern California is massive. I saw at one point 30,000 customers were without power because of rain. That tells you how that system's not designed to withhold rain. And then for the rest of my fellow Americans who maybe not in Southern California, you have this massive blizzard. I was looking up, supposed to be today from Colorado to Kansas. Like, I don't think people understand how big that is. If you were to drive from Denver, Colorado to Minneapolis, Minnesota, or actually fly, I looked it up, it's 700 miles directly. So we have this winter storm that if you were to drive it is affecting 800, 900 mile wide area of the United States. That is completely crazy to me. And I think we've talked a lot about this year about climate change, about how weather systems are becoming stronger, are becoming more erratic, are becoming more frequent. And this is just another, I think, example of people are trying to ease into their holidays. And if you're a BC professional in the United States, you're dealing with unprecedented rain and 800-mile wide snowstorm.
Two things. On Thursday, we're recording on Tuesday afternoon. But on Thursday, we already have a weather statement for our area. That same storm as it comes up this way. Stay home, 20 centimeters of snow, freezing rain just before it. So they're telling everyone, don't go anywhere. Just stay put. Don't travel that day. And two, we talked in the beginning about the business continuity, people and events, and we've mentioned about talent management and people working from home and things like that. This is an example where in a huge swath of the US and into Canada now, that employees will potentially be offline.
Correct.
So now what are organizations going to do? Because there's nothing I can do to stop the storm. It's coming, period. There's nothing I can do at home to change anything. A storm is a storm. And whether I have all the lights on my computers and I have access right now, as soon as it hits, there's no guarantee that I'm still going to have that. And there's no way I can guarantee my organization can do that. There's no way the organization can guarantee, that I'm still going to have access. I may be up and running, but they aren't.
Exactly. It makes me think of when you and I were in Toronto together last month. And that week, the forecast over the next few days called for 60 to 70 inches of snow in Buffalo, New York. And I remember you saying to me at the time, there's no way that area is going to get that much snow. And they did. They got over 5 feet of snow. We all saw the pictures. You're not going anywhere in 5 feet of snow, and you're going to be very lucky if you have power at all. There's not a BCP plan for most of the world where, well, what happens if we get snow taller than I am? So we continue to see these very strong storms. The unusual is becoming the usual.
Yeah. And I mentioned priorities. If we had that much snow where I live, my priority is not to make sure I'm typing out an email to somebody. My priority now is clean my sidewalk, the steps,
Correct.
every 20 minutes or something, so that I'm not completely buried. That's my focus now. You turn into survival mode.
Yes.
That not email mode. That kind of stuff. And that's again, with such a huge storm front passing through, that's going to be affecting tens. I don't know how many people live in central US, but let's say tens of millions of people or households.
Exactly. And to your point about priorities, when I was in the Toronto airport the next morning after you and I had that conversation, the board was turning red. Red, 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 red. My goal was to get on a plane and to get out. I wasn't checking email. I canceled a couple of calls I had. I moved my flight up. You knew I was like, I just don't want to get stuck, because that storm at Buffalo was so big. Even though I was going from Toronto to Tampa, it was affecting flights throughout throughout Canada and throughout the Northeast and Midwest United States. So my priority solely became get out. And everything that was work related was going to have to wait until after I landed. And to your point, it's very realistic. That much snow, I'm focused on my sidewalks, my roof, my water pipes, my electricity. We take care of ourselves and our families first. Mm-hmm. And as an organization, we should expect our employees. We always say life safety is a priority. Our employees are the priority. With these storms, if I'm in San Diego with 7 inches of rain, or Buffalo with 5 feet of snow, I have other things to deal with besides our team's meeting at 10:30.
Yeah. I've worked with people that don't see that get a little upset. Well, there's 100 of us here in this office, and there's only one of you way out there. You should change to us. And it's like, well, no, you guys can be impacted by the exact same things I can. There's just more of you over there and than there is over here. So, but I am working with some people, and I think there are more people now who are starting to understand that these events, like these massive snowstorms, have an impact on communities and individuals, whether you're in sunny California or not, or in this case, rainy California. I could be working with that company, in rainy California. They're impacted. I'm in wherever, Tampa, and I'm not impacted. Well, still, there's some give and take. You're not all going to be impacted at the same time by the same events. You're going to be impacted at different times by different events. So Absolutely. let's move on to our fourth topic, and this is something that, believe it or not, I sent James.
You did.
Because I don't know, I can't remember how I found this. But we've talked about on the show before these various regulations and guidelines that have been coming out, and we've touched on a few of them here. And I came across another one. I must have been looking for something else, but this cropped up. It's brand new, and it's a guideline on business continuity plans for 2022 from the Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan, the country of Bhutan. So I'm kind of curious to get your thought on, how do we keep track of all of these standards and regulations and guidelines that are coming out?
Exactly. First of all, I would love to see your Google search history to find out how you found this. I want to touch on, I'm not a reg guy, as everyone knows, but there is something in this regulation that I love. So I want to touch on that that before I answer your question. There is this section, and I'm going to read it verbatim. That's how excited I am about it. It says continuous review and assessment. This is music to my ears. It says business continuity is an ongoing effort to ensure that the measures put in place can address operational risk posed by current threats as well as potential future risk. Organizations shall take a proactive approach to business continuity by incorporating business continuity into its day-to-day operations to address a wide range of severe and plausible disruption scenarios. I love this. I've seen very few regulations that acknowledge it's not just a compliance issue. It's not just a point in time. It's not just a check the box. So I love this. This is the most exciting piece of any regulatory document I've read this year. But to get back to your question, I'm concerned as more and more of these regulations keep popping up, we're not going to be able to keep up with it. And when I look at other industries, compliance, how do I comply with the laws of 200 countries? Privacy, how do I comply with privacy regulations in 150 countries? More and more organizations are turning and have to turn to software to manage all of that. I love software. I've worked at a software vendor, but when it comes to our profession, my concern is we are an organization, business continuity, and a profession that doesn't have enough resources to begin with. And if we have to start diverting resources to business continuity, regulation, compliance software, right, we're going to have even less resources to do the tactical and strategic work we need to do. And I worry about compliance functions tend to get funded because they're black-white. This is an audit issue. This is a reg issue. We could lose our charter. And if this becomes an issue, thoughtful organizations will say, okay, we need to take our BC budget and we need to grow it. But I think most organizations are going to say, okay, well, carve out part of your budget for this regulatory software. So my first question to you is, should we just start a BC regulatory software company? Seems like a gold mine. And then second, how are professionals, like, what are your thoughts? I see the only way to manage this is software, but I come from a software vendor background, so I'm biased on that. Do you think a lot of organizations are going to force professionals to manage this with spreadsheet or Google search, or what do you think is really going to happen here?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. One, I think we haven't seen all these guidelines yet. I think there's many more that are going to come out.
Yes.
Part of it is a bit of a political statement, is some countries do not want to be following the direction of another country.
Correct.
They want to be able to be seen by regulatory groups and government agencies around the globe as having a strong process in place within their own borders. Like, hey, look at us. We have our own guidelines. We follow. We are strong. Now they may nick a few ideas from different standards that have already come out to build their own, and which is fine. You know, they keep getting better. But to keep track of all of them that come out, especially with places like financial institutions, who you may not realize, but I know Canadian banks are all around the globe. They have their fingers everywhere, and I'm sure American banks too.
Absolutely.
Different European banks, whether you know it or not, they are. So they have to be aware of all these different guidelines that come out, and they got to use. They have to be using some sort of a software there, because each one, as I say, each guideline has a little bit of its own flavor to it. So one may focus on, and I'll just simplify the argument, focus on heavily on BIAs. So your software has got to be able to address and compare all the BIAs across all these various standards, while another one may focus on risk assessments. So again, your software has to be able to have a strong risk assessment component that can compare all these different pieces, so you can find out, yeah, we're in compliance with this one. Nope, we need work on this one. to get your evidence so that you can comply with these new guidelines that are coming out. So I think software is the only way to go. I can't imagine trying to manage some of these huge spreadsheets, which 20 years ago were a nightmare to manage.
Yes, they were.
I know, I'm sure you managed them. I did, and they were a real pain in the where back then. So I can't imagine what it would be like now trying to do it without some sort of a software. And your first question, yes, we should develop something.
So if you're a venture capitalist out there, you're watching this, you're an angel investor, you're like, hey, I got some money I want to burn. Come talk to Alex and I, because we're going to launch a business continuity, regulatory compliance software piece of cake, right? So
piece of cake. Just between me and you here, even though it's going to be on film, I actually started a spreadsheet where I started to actually track that kind of stuff. So believe it or not, I had something.
I love it.
So, and our last talking point today. Hey, we're getting through these rather quick today.
I've had a lot of espresso this afternoon, so I apologize.
What do we want Santa to bring our profession?
Let me put my Santa hat on. Yeah, I thought it was, it's December, it's the end of the year. People reflect on the year prior and the year coming up. So I thought we'd have some fun. If Santa, you always, I guess, I've been watching all these Hallmark movies with my family, and you ask Santa for a wish and it comes true magically, which I love. So I thought I would love to ask Alex, and I want to ask the audience, if you could ask Santa for some wishes in our profession, and I've got a few thoughts, but I'd love to hear from you. What would you ask Santa to bring us as a profession?
As a profession, this was the only item that I didn't write notes for. So,
all right. Well, I can start if you'd like.
Yeah, you'll have to start. It's the only
all right. So I have three. I want Santa to bring me 3 Christmas wishes for the business continuity profession. The first one is, I want us to stop arguing about terminology. I don't care anymore about terminology. So Santa, I don't know if I'm on the naughty or nice list. If you could bring that to me in my stocking, would be amazing. The second thing, I want us to understand and focus on that what works for our organization. While there's some commonalities, what makes one family or community or organization resilient, what works for them will not 100% make sense for others. And this is the concern I have with terminology and standards. When you try to shoehorn every family, every community, every organization into the same standard, because what makes Alex's family resilient is different than mine. What makes a manufacturing organization resilient is different than a financial institution. So I'd love to see us get away from focus more on, yes, there's best practices, there's commonalities, but it's not like, no, fit in this box and you now have BC, you now have zero risk, you now have permanent resilience. And then, the last wish, the first two are very Grinch-missy. So I thought I'd be a little more hopeful looking into the new year. I would like us all to help and to mentor people new to the profession, and also help us focus on parts of the world and organizations that don't have the level of in-house expertise that we have. I think a lot of us in this profession, because we are, experts in the profession or know what we're doing, there's a lot of organizations out there that don't have the Alex or Jameses of the world in-house, or don't have access to them. And I would love to see us do more kind of giving back into organizations that need some help with business continuity and resilience. Like, I'm not saying devote, work for them full-time for free, but I'd like to see us do more, thoughtful giving as professionals. Those are my 3 Christmas wishes.
Those first two, 100%, I would say the same thing. Terminology. We talked about this when we did our live broadcast in Toronto, that resilience means something different to different organizations. It may have had the same meaning before Y2K, when we all had the same point of disaster, same time frames, same everything. But the world has changed since then, and terminology, the way we do business, applications, everything has changed. So that means meanings of terms change with industries as well. And yeah, that drives me crazy, terminology. So I agree completely with that. And what works for one doesn't always work for another. 100% behind that. I will scream from the highest mountain on that one. But I want to add something, and we actually said it, or I said it in November, is that I would wish for greater self-awareness with this whole, with regards to our industry, but awareness, knowing that if we want to make a change, we have to be a part of that change. We have to create it. We have to communicate it. We have to speak the language of those we are approaching so that they understand what we're saying. Not this constant, because I still see it, speaking down to people. You must do this. You must do that. Well, as soon as you do that, you've got kids. What happens as soon as you say that to your kids?
They don't want to do it, whatever it is, just because I said you need to do this thing. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what happens in our industry. Thou shalt do this. You should have this. Perform this activity. And to one of your points, well, that may work great for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for me. So I would like Santa to give everybody a greater level of self-awareness so that we can become more adept to different situations and be more agile in our approach and be more open to different ways of doing things. And know that if we want to make a change, if we want to reduce the suffering organizations or communities, it starts with what we do. We can't always look at somebody else, you fix this, you do that. We have to be a part of that. So I think that's what I would wish for.
That's a great Christmas wish.
On that note, we've come to the end of the show. This has got to be one of the quickest ones we ever did. You should drink more coffee.
Christmas miracle. This is a Christmas miracle.
You should have more coffee, more often when we.
Oh my goodness!
Or I should. One of us.
Yeah, one of us. Absolutely.
James, once again, it's been fantastic talking to you. And on a personal note, it's been a great year with all the shows that we've done, live broadcasts, meeting up in Louisville, meeting up in Toronto, going to a hockey game. It's been great getting to know you and working with you. And I'm really looking forward to what we have in store for 2023. So I wish you and your family and all your colleagues and friends, nothing but the best for the holiday season.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Alex. I think we've done close to 20 hours of live broadcast between the two conferences, plus all of our This Week in Business continuities. It's been great working with you. We have so many exciting things to share with everyone in the new year. I'm really looking forward to all the things we're planning for 2023.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So thanks again, James, and everybody watching and listening. Have a great holiday season. Stay safe, and I wish you all the best for 2023. Stay safe, everyone. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.